Unless you're a straight up baller tech tuber like me, with companies literally showering you with free graphics cards just because you're such a baller. Just kidding, they don't really do that to me. I can barely get review samples for 2 weeks. You may have noticed that finding a decent GPU in stock right now is harder than funding the UFD tech team's monster addiction. I'm looking at you, Tank. It seems like no matter where you go, you're presented with this dreaded out of stock listing, and if by some lucky twist of fate you're able to find one, you can bet your sweet bottom it won't be selling for even close to what it's worth. I mean, you could find a GTX 960 for over $300. That's nearly what the 1070 is supposed to be selling for. What the actual harpsichord? So what's a PC gamer looking for an upgrade to do? Switch to console? I'd rather be stomped to death by 1,000 miniature zebras. No, believe it or not, there are still ways to get your hands on that GPU that you've been eyeing, and those are what we'll be discussing in this video. So first up, take the plunge and buy a pre-built. There's this stigma in the enthusiast PC gaming community about recommending pre-built systems, and we can understand why. Not only is building your own PC kind of like a rite of passage of the PC gaming master race and legitimately fun to do once you get the hang of it, it's usually always the cheapest option. Usually. Unfortunately, we live in a time where it usually has to be taken out back and shot. There's nothing usual about the current state of the GPU market. The severe shortage of stock coupled with exorbitantly high pricing has made even buying a lower end Nvidia or AMD card a heart and wallet wrenching ordeal, which is why this is probably the only time we'll recommend picking up a pre-built system, or at least until the next crypto mining craze kicks off. Why have we resorted to such a thing? Well, the simple answer is that right now, pre-builts just make a lot more sense. Let's say you're after Nvidia's fantastic GTX 1070. While there is currently no stock to be found on Amazon and the like, you're looking at paying around $800 for the privilege of owning one. For reference, when the card originally launched more than a year and a half ago, it sold for $379. Now, you could just take the hit and buy it at its $800 price tag, which you really shouldn't because that'd be insane, or you could spend a little more and get the card and an entire PC to put it into. iBuyPower's PC AM002i, which admittedly sounds way less cool than it actually is equipped with the aforementioned 1070, a Core i7-7700, B250 motherboard, 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM clocked at 2400 MHz, comes with a 120 gig SSD, as well as a 1TB hard drive, and is currently selling for $1,240. Oh, and it also comes with an okay looking mouse, keyboard, and case. Now, if you tried to part out a similar rig for around the same price, you'd be dead in the water. Just the price of a 1070, $800, and the i7-7700, $300, alone comes in at $1,100. Add in a decent stick of RAM and SSD and HDD as well as a motherboard and you'd be already over budget, and we haven't even added the price of the power supply, case, mouse, and keyboard. Unless you go super low end, the situation is mostly the same no matter what card you're looking for. Now, of course, going pre-built still sucks. I mean, you're losing out on the fun of building it yourself. It's still pretty pricey depending on which one you go with, and you're likely not going to get the best quality parts around. But in the current state of the market, if you're looking for a brand new system, you simply can't do a whole lot better without selling at least a small part of your liver. But not everyone's in the market for an entirely new system. Some people may already be very happy with the rig they're rocking and they just want to upgrade their GPU, either because their current one's out of date or the one that they had died. But what about those people? Are they screwed? Well, that depends. Just how much do you hate miners? If you can't beat them, join them. There's no denying that miners are largely to blame for the current GPU stock and pricing issues. They just are. I mean, they're not 100% to blame here because there are countless other factors at play here, but if they weren't snatching up all of the juicy GPUs left and right, we wouldn't be that stuck in this mess. Another thing that can't be denied is that they don't really care about salty gamer tiers. They don't care because they're making bank. That's right, even though the vast majority of worthwhile cryptos have collectively decided to test the lows recently by burrowing straight into the Earth's core, mining them can be still pretty dang profitable. Taking that into account and the likelihood that GPU pricing won't return to anything approaching normality at least for another few months, it might just be time to mine a little on the side yourself. Sticking with our earlier example, let's say you decide to suck it up and upgrade to a GTX 1070 for around $800. At current rates, with an electricity cost of 12 cents per kilowatt hour, a 1070 without any major optimizations should be able to earn about $3.98 per day. That means you could be making around $120 per month. With returns like that, the card will be able to pay itself off entirely in about 6 months, which is no small feat. Even if you only let it mine for 3 months, you'll have made enough for the card to have only technically cost you a few bucks more than its MSRP. Now sure, all of that's assuming that profitability and mining difficulty will remain more or less the same throughout the time, which it won't, but still, even at half of its current profitability, you should still be able to put a dent in the card's absolutely insane price tag. Or, you know, If you're super annoyed with miners, you could mine purely with the intention of upping the mining difficulty, making it less profitable for everyone involved. That way, miners will be forced to sell their GPUs on the cheap so you can buy them on the cheap. Genius. Obviously, we recognize that this solution really isn't all that helpful, as scrounging up $800, even if you're likely to pay it off later, is an entirely mountainous trial. I don't think too many of you can all of a sudden convert that $400 you had saved up for that 1070 into double the amount of cash just because you'll have an ROI in 6 months. So yeah, just mine with what you have currently, raise the difficulty, flood the used markets, and pick up that 1070 for $200 instead. If none of that sounds like your kind of thing, and you can keep your cut at bay for a little while, there is another extremely viable option to consider. That option being, just wait it out. No, really. Just wait it out. We know that having to wait for your next upgrade can sometimes be excruciating, but in the current situation, it really is the most sensible thing you can do. None of the capable GPUs are worth anywhere near what they're selling for now, and even if they were, a good chunk of us wouldn't be able to justify dropping that much cash. So what are we waiting for? For everything to come crashing down, obviously, and also for Nvidia's Volta cards. As mentioned earlier, many of the more popular coins have been steadily declining in value recently. This dip has made mining a much less attractive undertaking, primarily because it isn't as stupidly profitable as it was just a week or two ago. Don't get us wrong, mining is still earning a lot of people a fair bit of money, but this dip in profitability might just be enough to make it far less worthwhile for many miners, and if the trend continues, mining just won't remain viable for many miners a whole lot longer if they're buying GPUs at the current prices. If that happens, the secondhand market might well be deluged with perfectly capable GPUs selling for something much closer to what they actually should be going for. But waiting for something that may or may not happen isn't ideal. Luckily, there's something else coming later this year that might just be worth waiting for. Volta. Yes, Volta. Or at least what we think that it might be called, Volta. We know and suspect quite a few things about Nvidia's next-gen Volta gaming cards already. According to Nvidia's GPU roadmap, we know that they'll be announced sometime this year, likely at Nvidia's GTC event in late March, or between that and Computex, which is in early June. We also have a slight understanding of how powerful they are thanks to the Titan V's impressive benchmark numbers in gaming as well as with mining. If the gaming Volta cards follow the Titan V's lead even just a little, they'll be noticeably better gaming and mining cards than current Nvidia and AMD cards. Unfortunately, if that does prove to be the case, they'll be snapped up real quick. If the mining craze is still in full swing by the time they launch, miners will likely buy them all up before most of us realize what's happening. And while that sucks because we won't be able to get our hands on Volta as soon as we'd like, it also means that miners will be relatively quick to ditch their older cards. Just like in the scenario where crypto crashes, there will probably be an influx of great AMD and Nvidia cards trickling into the secondhand market. And if demand for 10 series cards and RX Polaris cards take a dive because of the used market, we'll undoubtedly see those cards being sold new for a fair, or at least fairer price. And speaking about fairer price, there's a slightly more obscure way you might be able to get your hands on a fancy new 1080 Ti or RX Vega card for a decent price. The grass could be greener on the other side. While countries like the Americas and South Africa are facing massive stock issues and high pricing, other countries might not be as affected by the mining craze. Mining is popular in the US and other countries at least partly because their electricity costs don't eat away into the majority of their mining profit. In countries where this isn't the case and the electricity cost outweighs the potential profit, you may just be able to find most cards in stock at an okay price. Of course, you'd have to either fly out to said countries to pick the cards up or have them shipped to you, which may cost you a pretty penny, but if the country is relatively close to you, it might just be worth a try. You'll obviously need to do a ton of research into whether you could actually pull something like that off and still walk away with a good deal, but it shouldn't be impossible. And the last thing we'll recommend to you is to use the tools at your disposal. Hunt GPUs smarter, not harder. While habitually checking the likes of Amazon or Newegg every day to see whether the card you're looking for is finally in stock is an option, there are other, more efficient ways of going about the whole thing. Instead of going to each individual site hoping to spot your card in stock, there are sites like nowinstock.net and Zoolert that seem to do all of the legwork for you. Both sites check the stock status of the item you list in their search bars at various retailers including Newegg, Amazon, and even other sites you'd probably never even bother to check. They then compile the results listing whether it's in stock, how much it's selling for, and the last time the item was available at a particular retailer. They're not the most helpful tools ever if you have a slow trigger finger though, as we use them to see whether there was a 1080 Ti in stock anywhere. We found one, and when we checked the store, it was already gone. But for the most part, they seem to do what they claim to. Now look, none of the options included in this video are ideal. In an ideal world, both miners and gamers would be able to get the GPUs they want whenever they want and not at ridiculous prices. Unfortunately, that's not the case and won't be for a while. But not all hope is lost. There are still ways for people to get into PC gaming without without breaking the bank, and there are alternatives to just buying cards at whatever ludicrous prices retailers decide to set. And here's the last little bonus item that might fit some of you, but probably not most. GPU external docks. There's not a high chance that most of us actually looking for GPUs actually have Thunderbolt 3 ports to actually make this work. It seems like there isn't that much impetus to put that connector on many mainstream Z370 boards or otherwise, but if you do happen to have a TB3 connection, then picking up a box like this Galax 1060 enclosure or one of the Aorus gaming boxes with a 1070 or higher, you should be able to grab a nice GPU without too much of a price markup. There seems to be stock issues with these, so that's another challenge, but the prices don't seem to be peaking right now. But that's why we include it as a bonus last resort. It's also good to remember that this is probably not the new norm. While massive spikes in crypto prices have been met with equally massive GPU price spikes, it usually settles down a month or 3 afterwards. Still, the entire situation sucks, but hopefully these 5 hints and tips help make it suck at least a little less. But let me know if you have any alternatives for getting through this drought that we're in now. How are you handling it? Are you just waiting it out, buying pre-builts for the GPUs, then selling the rest on Craigslist? I want to hear how you all are doing it, either down in the comments or over on Twitter. I am at UFDisciple. Be sure to smash that like button if you found this video useful, and get subscribed to stay up to date on all of our tech-related content. I am Brett with the UFD Tech channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers. There's no GPU in my computer. What? And the one that I use for the live streams is gone. The GPU on the editing machine's gone too. The one on the test benches. Where are all of our graphics cards? What the heck? They're gone from the shelves too? Freaking where are the graphics cards? Reece, where are the graphics cards?
There was this weird miner guy who came and installed everything.
Are you serious? You've got to be kidding me. Stupid piece of junk! You filthy miner! This is what you get!